Dick Whittington's success story has got everything. The poor orphan boy who goes to the city.
My daughter Liza is such a combination of Mike and me.
Elizabeth Taylor, Hollywood's most iconic starlet, lived a life of glitz, glamour, and scandal. But behind the diamonds, designer gowns, and 8 marriages, she was also a devoted mother to 4 children. For years, the world watched her dazzling career unfold. But few know the truth about what really happened to her kids after the spotlight faded. Where did they go? And what kind of lives did they lead away from their mother's towering fame? This is the untold story of Elizabeth Taylor's hidden legacy. Michael Wilding Jr. Michael Wilding Jr. was born on January 6, 1953 in sunny Santa Monica, California. His mother was none other than the legendary actress Elizabeth Taylor, and his father was British actor Michael Wilding Sr., who was 20 years older than Elizabeth. Their marriage, which lasted from 1952 to 1957, brought a rare sense of peace to Elizabeth's famously dramatic life. With parents like his, it seemed natural for Michael Jr. to try acting. In the 1980s, he appeared in popular TV shows like Dallas, where he played Alex Burton, and Guiding Light as Jackson Fremont. He also had a role in the movie Deadly Illusion. People often said he had his mother's striking violet eyes, a rare and unforgettable trait. But acting wasn't his true path. Michael eventually stepped away from the spotlight and followed a different calling: sculpture. In 1991, he moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, a city known for its art scene, and began working as a stone sculptor. He focused on abstract forms, drawing inspiration from the peaceful desert around him. For Michael, sculpting was like having a quiet conversation with the stone, shaping it by gently removing what didn't belong. He worked with materials like marble, bronze, and limestone, and over the years, his dedication earned him real respect in the art world. One of the galleries that represents him is the Wilding Cran Gallery in Los Angeles, co-founded by his daughter, Naomi Wilding, proof that the artistic spirit runs strong in their family. Michael Wilding Jr.'s personal life also had its chapters. He married Beth Clutter in 1970, though the marriage didn't last. Later, in 1982, he married Brooke Palance, and this time, the bond endured. He also had a daughter with Johanna like Dawn. In total, Michael Jr. has 3 children: Layla, with Beth Clutter, Naomi, with Johanna, and Tarquin, with Brooke Palance. All 3 were said to be very close to their famous grandmother, Elizabeth Taylor. That closeness was clear in 1991, when Michael Jr. walked his mother down the aisle at her wedding to Larry Fortensky. When Elizabeth passed away in 2011, Michael Jr. shared a touching message. "My mother was an extraordinary woman who lived life to the fullest. We will always be inspired by her lasting contributions to the world." He praised not just her film career, but also her bold work in business and her tireless efforts in the fight against HIV/AIDS. That legacy of activism didn't end with Elizabeth. Michael Jr.'s children have continued her work through the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Naomi Wilding now serves as an ambassador for ETAF, and Tarquin has spoken about the grandchildren's shared mission to honor their grandmother's generous heart. As for Michael Jr., he prefers a quiet life out of the public eye. But that's not the case with Christopher. Let's take a closer look at Christopher Wilding's life. Christopher Wilding. Christopher Wilding was born on February 27, 1955 in Los Angeles. His life took a turn early on. His parents divorced when he was just 2 years old. Much of his childhood was spent in Europe, far from Hollywood. His mother, the legendary Elizabeth Taylor,
Dozen, maybe.
And this morning, you stagger out of his apartment. Charming.
Funny thing, I don't even remember going there.
did her best to protect him and his brother from the chaos of her fame. But the circus, as Christopher called it, was never far away. He remembered paparazzi often waiting outside their home, cameras ready. Even when he went to boarding school, fame followed him. He would read magazines to find out what was happening in his mother's life, just like any fan would. Classmates sometimes teased him cruelly about her very public love life, which made things even harder. Although he was born to two famous actors, Christopher chose a different path. He preferred working behind the camera rather than in front of it. He became a skilled sound editor and assistant director, working on well-known films like Tombstone in 1993, Overboard in 1987, and The Shadow in 1994, in which he even had a small acting role. He also worked on Judgment Night in 1993 and Loverboy in 1989. His career shows that he wanted to be part of the film world in his own quiet, creative way, not just because of his famous name. Christopher is also known to have worked as a photographer, though little is known about that part of his life. He has always been a very private person and is now believed to be retired. In his personal life, Christopher married Aileen Getty of the wealthy Getty oil family on August 26, 1981. They had two sons, Caleb, born in 1983 and adopted, and Andrew, born in 1984. The couple divorced in the late 1980s. Later, Christopher married Margie Carlton, who also works in the film industry as a respected sound expert. They had a son, Lowell, born in 1992, and as of 2016, they were living in Calabasas, California. For many years, Christopher kept quiet about his famous mother, but more recently, he's spoken openly and emotionally about her. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, he said, "She was so beautiful. Some people overlooked how good she was at acting." He believed that if Elizabeth Taylor were still alive, she would be most proud of her charity work. In the BBC documentary Elizabeth Taylor, Rebel Superstar, Christopher opened up more than ever before. He called the media frenzy around her romance with Richard Burton a drag, and remembered the pain of being teased at school. He also shared that later in life, his mother admitted she didn't think she was a great mom. Christopher replied with understanding, "But I felt like she was a good mother. It wasn't easy to do." This documentary marked the first time in decades that Christopher spoke publicly about his mother. One of his most powerful statements was about the cost of fame. That's a deal with the devil that's really not worth it. Today, Christopher plays an important role in protecting Elizabeth Taylor's legacy. He's a trustee for the Elizabeth Taylor Southern Trust, helping manage her large estate. He and other trustees even took legal action against Christie's auction house to defend her famous collection. The money raised from that auction was meant to support the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation, showing that Christopher continues to carry on his mother's mission of helping others. Now, let's talk about Liza Todd, whose birth weight made headlines. Liza Todd. Liza Todd was born on August 6, 1957, in New York City. Her birth was a big event, so much so that even her small birth weight made the news. Life magazine featured baby Liza on the cover with her famous mother Elizabeth Taylor. She was the only child of Liz Taylor and movie producer Mike Todd. Sadly, when Liza was only 7 months old, her father died in a plane crash on March 22, 1958. This tragic event deeply affected Liz Taylor, who was said to have never fully recovered, and it had a strong impact on Liza's early life. After Mike Todd's death, singer Eddie Fisher became Liza's first stepfather. Later, actor Richard Burton married Liz Taylor and legally adopted Liza. They were very close. Liza called Burton Dad, but saved the word father for Mike Todd. Liz often said that Burton was the best stepfather anyone could have. Liza studied art seriously. She went to a boarding school in Switzerland, then to the Hornsey College of Art in London, and finally to the Otis Art Institute in Los Angeles. As an artist, she is known as Liza Todd Tivy, and became a respected sculptor, especially for her detailed and lifelike animal sculptures. She works mainly in bronze, and is praised for how well she captures the spirit and form of animals. Some of her best-known works include bronze statues of famous racehorses like Secretariat, a memorial for a horse named Nashua, and a life-sized calf sculpture made for Gstaad, Switzerland, a place special to her family. Her art is shown in galleries around the world and sells at auctions for anywhere between $300 and $22,500. Liza has always valued her privacy. In 1984, she married Hap Tivey. They had 2 sons, Quinn and Reese, before divorcing in 2003. She now lives quietly in upstate New York, surrounded by animals. She reportedly rarely talks about her famous background, and decided early on not to live in her mother's spotlight. Still, Liza did spend time on her mother's movie sets as a child. Elizabeth Taylor once said that Liza had many of Mike Todd's mannerisms and energy. Although Liza herself isn't publicly active in the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation or in managing her mother's estate, her son Quinn is very involved. He is a trustee of the House of Taylor and helps continue Elizabeth Taylor's work in AIDS awareness and advocacy. He often speaks lovingly of his grandmother, saying she was simply grandma to him. Liza's other son, Reese, is a musician and has also been recognized for his connection to the family legacy. While Liza prefers to stay out of the spotlight, she has passed on her family's values, allowing the next generation to carry on the public work. Moving forward, we'll examine the life of Maria Burton Elizabeth Taylor's adopted child. Maria Burton. Maria Burton was born around August 1, 1961, in Munich, Germany. No one knows who her birth parents were. She was adopted by actress Elizabeth Taylor, reportedly when Maria was just 3 years old, possibly while Taylor was still married to Eddie Fisher. Later, when Taylor married actor Richard Burton, he also legally adopted Maria. Maria's early childhood wasn't easy. She was born with a serious hip condition that required almost 20 surgeries. Elizabeth Taylor once said, "I want her all the more because she's ill. Maybe I can do something to help." This showed how deeply she cared for Maria. Both Taylor and Burton were very involved in her medical care. Growing up with 2 world-famous parents meant a life full of travel and constant attention from the press. Despite this, Maria found her own path. She expressed her creativity through fashion design and, more notably, co-founded a boutique talent agency called Liza Todd with her first husband, Steve Carson. This showed her interest in working behind the scenes in the entertainment world. Maria has also been described as a generous and giving person, much like her mother, who was known for her charity work. Although Maria tends to stay out of the spotlight, her daughter, Eliza Carson, continues the family legacy by serving as an ambassador for the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. Maria has been married twice. Her first marriage was to Daniel Steve Carson in 1981. They had a daughter, Eliza, born in 1982, and divorced in 2000 after 19 years together. In 2002, Maria married Tom McCon, and they had a son named Richard, reportedly born in 2001. That marriage also ended in divorce. But who exactly was Elizabeth Taylor? Let's find out. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was born on February 27, 1932 in London, England, to wealthy American parents who were well known in social circles. When World War II began to spread through Europe, her family moved to Los Angeles in 1939. She was just 7 years old. Not long after, she entered the world of acting, making her film debut with a small role in There's One Born Every Minute in 1942. However, that first studio dropped her after only a year, but her big break came when she signed with the famous studio MGM. At just 12 years old, she captured hearts with her role in National Velvet in 1944, and she quickly became one of the most popular teenage stars of the time. As she grew older, Elizabeth moved into more serious and adult roles during the 1950s. She starred in Father of the Bride in 1950, a lighthearted family comedy, and won praise from critics for her moving performance in A Place in the Sun in 1951, a dramatic love story. She also appeared in the grand historical adventure Ivanhoe in 1952 alongside stars like Robert Taylor and Joan Fontaine. Even though she was one of MGM's most successful actresses, Elizabeth was unhappy. She felt trapped by the studio, which controlled her career and forced her to star in movies she didn't enjoy. At one point in the early 1950s, she even considered quitting acting altogether. Things started to change in the mid-1950s. Elizabeth finally began to receive more interesting and challenging roles. One of these was in the epic film Giant in 1956, which became a major hit. More success followed. She starred in powerful dramas based on plays by Tennessee Williams, including Cat on a Hot Tin Roof in 1958 and Suddenly, last summer in 1959. Her performance in the latter won her a Golden Globe for Best Actress. Then came Butterfield 8 in 1960, where she played a troubled call girl. Although she didn't like the role, it earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress, her first Oscar. While filming the expensive and ambitious movie Cleopatra in 1961, Elizabeth began a passionate affair with her co-star Richard Burton. At the time, both were married to other people, so the romance caused a huge scandal. The press followed every moment of their relationship, dubbing them Liz and Dick. Despite the controversy, they stayed together and married in 1964. They became one of Hollywood's most talked-about couples, starring in 11 films together, including The VIPs in 1963, The Sandpiper in 1965, The Taming of the Shrew in 1967, and the intense drama Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf in 1966. For her bold and raw performance in Virginia Woolf, Elizabeth won her second Academy Award and received some of the best reviews of her career. She and Burton divorced in 1974, but the love story didn't end there. They remarried in 1975, only to divorce again a year later. By the late 1960s, her acting career began to slow down. Although she still appeared in movies into the mid-1970s, she soon stepped back to support her sixth husband, U.S. Senator John Warner, as he pursued a political career. In the 1980s, Elizabeth took on new challenges, including her first major roles on stage and in TV films and miniseries. In 1985, she helped start the American Foundation for AIDS Research, and in 1991, she launched her own organization, the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. From the early 1990s until her death, she devoted herself to charity work, raising millions of dollars and spreading awareness. In 2001, she received the Presidential Citizens Medal, one of the highest honors in the United States, for her humanitarian effort. Taylor's marriages and relationships. Elizabeth Taylor's love life was as dramatic and famous as the movies she starred in. She got married 8 times, twice to the same man, and the public couldn't stop talking about it. According to her biographer Alexander Walker, marriage became a big part of the story people told about her, starting when she was just 16. Back in 1948, her movie studio, MGM, set her up with football star Glenn Davis, and they even talked about getting married when he came back from the Korean War. Soon after, she got engaged to William Pauley Jr., the son of a U.S. ambassador. But that didn't last either. Even Howard Hughes, one of the richest men in the world, offered her parents a huge sum of money if she would marry him. But she said no. Still, Taylor believed love and marriage had to go together. She later said she was emotionally immature and thought getting married would help her escape her strict upbringing and the tight control of MGM. She was only 18 when she married Conrad Nicky Hilton Jr., heir to the Hilton Hotel fortune. Their wedding in May 1950 was a huge Hollywood event organized by MGM, but the marriage quickly turned into a nightmare. Hilton drank heavily, was abusive, and Taylor sadly suffered a miscarriage during one of his violent outbursts. She left him just 8 months later and divorced him on the grounds of mental cruelty. Her second husband was British actor Michael Wilding, who was 20 years older than her. They had a quiet wedding in London in 1952. Elizabeth was drawn to his calm nature, and he thought being married to her would help his career. They had 2 sons, Michael and Christopher. But as Taylor grew more confident, Wilding's career faded, and their marriage began to fall apart. While she was away filming Giant, rumors spread that Wilding was entertaining strippers at home. They separated in 1956 and divorced the next year. In 1957, Taylor married producer Mike Todd in Mexico, and she was already 3 months pregnant at the time. They had a daughter named Liza. Todd loved the spotlight, and their marriage was full of wild moments, like the time he threw a massive birthday bash in Madison Square Garden with 18,000 guests. But tragedy struck in 1958 when Todd died in a plane crash, leaving Taylor heartbroken. In her grief, she turned to family friend and singer Eddie Fisher, who was still married to actress Debbie Reynolds. Their affair caused a huge scandal, and people called Taylor a homewrecker. She and Fisher got married in 1959, but she later admitted she only married him because she was grieving. Taylor and Reynolds eventually made peace. Then came the most famous love story of her life. In 1962, while filming Cleopatra in Italy, Taylor began a passionate affair with her co-star Richard Burton, who was also married at the time. Paparazzi caught them kissing on a yacht, and the photo shocked the world. Even the Vatican condemned them, and some U.S. politicians wanted to ban them from the country. Taylor divorced Fisher in March 1964 and married Burton just 10 days later. Burton adopted Taylor's daughter Liza and another girl, Maria, whom Taylor had started adopting during her marriage to Fisher. The press called them Liz and Dick, and they starred in 11 films together. They lived a glamorous, wild life, jet-setting around the world and spending huge amounts on jewels, clothes, art, yachts, and even a private jet. People couldn't get enough of their ups and downs. Stories about their money.
I didn't know that it was a career. It didn't occur to me that I was working for money.
Arguments, affairs, and possible open marriage filled magazines. They divorced in 1974, but couldn't stay apart for long. They remarried in Botswana in 1975, only to split again less than a year later. Taylor later said that after Richard, no man could ever compare. All the men after Richard, she said, were just company. Soon after her second divorce from Burton, she met her sixth husband, John Warner, a politician from Virginia. They married in December 1976, and she threw herself into helping with his campaign. But once he became a U.S. senator, Taylor felt bored and alone in Washington. She became depressed, gained weight, and struggled with alcohol and prescription drug addiction. They separated in 1981 and divorced the following year. After her divorce from Warner, Elizabeth Taylor dated actors Anthony Geary and George Hamilton. In 1983, she got engaged to a Mexican lawyer named Victor Luna, and then in 1985, she was briefly engaged to a businessman from New York, Dennis Stein. In 1988, Taylor met her seventh and final husband, a construction worker named Larry Fortensky, while they were both at the Betty Ford Center, a rehab clinic. They got married on October 6, 1991, at Neverland Ranch, the famous home of her close friend, Michael Jackson. The wedding drew massive media attention. One daring photographer even parachuted onto the property. Taylor sold the wedding photos to People magazine for $1 million and used that money to launch her AIDS Foundation. Taylor and Fortensky eventually divorced on October 31, 1996, but they stayed in touch for the rest of her life. She said the marriage ended partly because of her painful hip surgeries and his struggles with obsessive-compulsive disorder. In late 1999, Fortensky suffered a serious accident. He fell off a balcony, had to undergo brain surgery, and spent 6 weeks in a coma. Taylor stepped in and told the hospital she would cover all his medical bills. Near the end of 2010, she wrote him a heartfelt letter saying, "You're a part of my life that cannot be carved out, nor do I ever wish it to be." Their last phone call was on February 7, 2011, just a day before she was admitted to the hospital for the final time. During that call, he told her he believed she would outlive him. Even though they had been divorced for almost 15 years, Taylor left Fortensky $825,000 in her will, a sign of how much she still cared. In her final years, Taylor also had a close, but non-romantic, friendship with actor Colin Farrell. What do you think about Elizabeth Taylor's 4 children? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.